Hi, I'm Dr. Dan Ratner. Today I'm joined by Kimba, who recently attended my seminars. She's going to tell us how she did with the seminars, and she really did have some explosive results. If you haven't already, click subscribe, ring the bell for notifications, hit like if you like what you're hearing, and put your comments below and I'll get back to you personally. And finally, you can reserve your place in one of those seminars or purchase any of my mind-body guides, also known as the PDFs, at www.crushingdoubt.org. Kimba, I'm really excited to talk to you to find out about what your experience was like. Of course, I know some of what it was like because we talked about it during the seminar. And in fact, you had things happen during the seminar, which was really, really exciting.
Yeah.
So, first of all, I like to start people off with a little bit of an update on your symptoms. And if you could start with what your symptoms were, that would be helpful.
Absolutely. I've had this tenseness in my body, like extreme tension in my legs, my glutes, my mid back for probably about 3 years. So when I walk, I kind of waddle because I'm like all tensed up. And then I have extreme pain in the right front thigh whenever I take a step. So the great thing, if you want to look at it this way, the great thing is I don't have pain all the time. If I'm lying down or like I'm sitting right now, I don't have any pain. But when I'm walking, it's bad, and it's changed my life for sure. And so I love the seminars for sure. And I'm learning so much. And as we talked yesterday on Friday, the last day of the seminar, the Wednesday before was our second to the last day. And I kind of freaked out because I was like, oh my gosh, I don't know if I have this. And that seems like I don't know what I'm doing. And I actually had a symptom happen that during the seminar. And I stood up to get some water. And when I stood up, my low back, which never bothers me, just went into this huge spasm. I had horrible pain. And I'm like, and I knew immediately that it was this. I knew it was like, oh, it's because I'm upset, or, I'm afraid of what's going to happen moving forward. So I was able to get rid of it during the seminar before the end of that day.
Was it something you said to yourself from what you had learned in the seminar, or was it something I said, or what led to the ability to get rid of that pain so fast?
Probably thinking emotional right away, because that's the column that it was in. If it's an onset or an uptick, it's almost always emotional. I'm like, well, what's my emotion? Well, I'm afraid. I'm afraid I'm not going to get this. I'm afraid it's not going to work for me, or I don't get it and I don't know what I'm doing. And so I started thinking, I kept thinking to myself, let me feel the fear. Let me feel the anxiousness. And I started doing that, and it went away.
Yeah, and that shows the emotions column work right there. You think emotionally, you get to the root of it, and it really does take you out of the physical side. And actually, so we met on the Facebook group 3 minutes after that session.
Yeah.
And you came in and you were okay.
Yeah.
It was minutes later. So
yeah.
So let me ask this. Coming into the seminar, what were your hopes for it, and what were your worries about it? And then let's talk about how it ended up playing out.
Oh, sure. So my hopes were to understand the columns and understand your system more clearly. That was my hope. And I do understand it definitely more than I did. It is a lot to take in. So I highly recommend it. If it's like I've tried a million different things, and this really resonated with me, and you did as well. And your generosity to help us, which is amazing, and it makes me feel really good. So, what was the second question? I'm sorry.
I don't even remember. That's hilarious.
Okay.
The basic gist was, I wondered, everybody comes into these seminars having tried lots of things, generally speaking.
Right. Sure.
And I think that I was well aware of the fact that they had tried many things. And so remember the first session, I talked about why might this be different?
Yep.
And I wondered if you could speak to that. How did that end up playing out?
Well, I love that you give so much time and effort into explaining things and different ways of explaining it, because we don't all learn the same way. So I really enjoyed that you would explain things and then maybe explain it one way and then change it and explain it a different way. And then it's like, oh, okay, I get it, I mean, it it's really been helpful. And the thing that happened on that Wednesday when I had the back spasm, and the thing that you said after that, when I think I wrote in the question and answer, hey, I literally just had something happen. And then I believe you said, well, just remember this is a process. And as soon as you said that, I'm like, oh, like,
Hmm.
oh, you mean I don't have to be better today? Because that would be A, great. And B, definitely not how it usually works, that this is a process. I'm still learning. And that was important for me to hear that, because otherwise I was freaking out like, oh my gosh, am I the only one that just doesn't get this? Or that am I the only one that's not getting better? And then hello.
Yeah, well, I think also, I think you'll agree with this, but the group itself really came to feel like a really special group. We heard about each other's stories. There was real care involved, and you learn that you're not the only one. Remember how many people were actually afraid at that moment? They were
Oh
like, "Oh
yeah.
my
Oh
God."
yes.
We're,
Yes. And I was like, oh, thank you. Thank you. I mean, and that helped so much. Yeah, the camaraderie with everyone, I think, was really genuine and awesome. And I loved hearing other people's stories, even though maybe their symptoms were different. It didn't matter. It's like, oh, okay. And I think it's really important to be around other people that are experiencing this. And we all experience it differently, obviously, but to know that we're not alone, that was really cool.
and it's all part of the understanding. I find that, and this is one of the reasons I set it up the way that I did. All of you out there suffering with pain, you either are in a session working with somebody or you're on your own. But
Mm-hmm.
this was like 2 weeks where 8 out of 11 days or 8 out of 12 days, something like that, we were together. And it just, I think that feeling of not being alone with it and having the information come in with an expert like me who can interpret things, help you understand where things are shifting and why do you not understand this. It's like we're troubleshooting the whole way. And that process comment, that was a troubleshooting moment. And then in the last session, I said, well, here's what to expect. And it was all about the fact that it's a process.
Right.
We don't want to put pressure on you guys to get better in the seminar. It's not, I mean, getting better is the ultimate goal, but it's really about getting the information. And one of the things I emphasized, and I want to hear from you on this, Kimba, is that idea that we have too little information and too much information. And I wanted to boil it down, even though there's a lot of information in my seminar as well. I wanted to kind of gather it together and say, you don't need everything.
Mm-hmm.
You don't need that. You don't need that. Just gather the basics. Could you talk about what you learned in the seminar? You may not be able to put it into words, because I know at the end you were like, I'm not even totally sure what happened.
Right. Exactly. No, okay, I bought the PDFs before I signed up for the seminar. And I'll tell you, when I got those, I'm like, I don't, I have no clue what this is. I mean, I was like, so when you take the seminar, then I think those make more sense. It's like, it's nice to have you explain it. And then I'm like, oh, and I don't have to use all of these, because I was looking at the action steps and I'm like, what? I mean, how can I possibly go through all those? But yeah, and I love the fact that we can go back and watch the recorded seminars and maybe pick something up we didn't pick up before. But like you said before, knowledge is a huge key. I mean, if you have all your questions answered, that's when you have no doubt. I mean, that helps crush your doubt, because if you have a question about something, and sometimes I wouldn't, during a session, I would think, oh no, I'm not going to ask it. I'm like, no, I'm going to ask it, because if I don't, that's going to put more doubt in my mind. So I don't
Well, you
know.
certainly did a great job. It's kind of advocating for yourself. It's like, hey, I want to get better. I got to know these answers. So let me ask you that about that part of the seminar. In days 2 and 3, we actually do crushing doubt.
Mm-hmm.
And that is where I present all of my arguments
Mm-hmm.
centralized. How did that work for you? I'm gathering information on this.
Sure. I no, it was great. I mean, there were a lot of things you brought up that I'm like, oh, I didn't even realize that was doubt, and the big thing I think for most people, I'm just guessing, is that they don't know if this is TMS. They're like, they keep going to doctors, and I stopped that a long time ago. I mean, I know it's TMS, but you just kind of laid it all out there, things that we like, again, like we hadn't thought about, that could be something that's doubtful. And it's like, oh yeah, I kind of thought that. So maybe, now that that's dismissed, then I don't have to worry about that anymore.
Yeah, and it's similar to what you said about the fact that I look from different angles, and it's from a different angle that you might be like, oh, that's the one that clicked for me.
Mm-hmm.
All those different angles that one can click and one cannot, but the fact that they're all there is such convergent information
Mm-hmm.
that I do think it helps people stop doubting, and it helps people stop having to look for, well, do I need to go to do this? Do I need to do that? Because it's all condensed into the broad science and logic topic. I mean, I don't want to speak for you, but that's part of how it was designed. So it seems like that worked for you.
Yeah, absolutely. And and again, a lot of things didn't apply to me. That's okay. They applied to other people. I mean, you can't, everyone is so different, and we all think differently, and our symptoms are different, and our lives are different. It's like, how can you just say this is what you do and you'll get better? Well, that's not how it works.
It's
So
never going to work.
yeah.
I mean, look,
not a good idea.
that's one of the reasons people have had such trouble getting better, is that everybody's trying to give out I don't want to say they're being impersonal, but it is a model that doesn't factor in that everybody's going to be different. And my model, because there are the 3 columns and there's different ways of operating within each column, you can pick and choose what applies to you and what doesn't. And it seems like that really worked well for you. In fact, yesterday, you said this was what it was like yesterday. Remember, we're moment to moment beings, so I don't know what you're like
Yep.
now.
Yeah.
What was your pain percentage at
It was
yesterday?
my pain. Yeah. Yesterday on Friday. And I think I just told you, or, maybe you raised my hand and spoke. It's like, it was 80% better, 80% down my pain. And I have some steps going off my back deck to go out into my driveway door. My garage is, and it's just 3 steps. It's nothing huge. They're not really steep. And there's a railing. And for 3 years, there was no way I would have tried to go down the steps without hanging onto it. And yesterday I just walked right down, and I'm like, what?
Wow.
So yeah. And then like I told you, I can't even pinpoint what it was that I mean, I can't be like, oh yeah, when I did that, immediately it stopped. I mean, that's not what happened. And like I said, also, is I don't think you have to know. I don't think you have to be like, okay, that's exactly what I did, and I'm going to have to keep doing that. I mean, I think that's impossible, probably.
Well, not only that, but then you're stuck on one solution with one
Right.
type of thing. I think what we did successfully is we helped people see the global picture so that it was less worrisome.
Yep.
And they stopped feeling like, well, there's too much information and too little information. Now you had enough information on the too little side, and we
Right.
started limiting the too much information. But I'm so pleased that you're doing so much better. And I wanted to check in about one other thing, because I wanted to check in on your mood state about this, your level of hopefulness. I'm sure it's radically different now.
Yeah.
Just talk about that a little bit.
Well, going in, I mean, I was excited to work with you and whoever was, on the Zoom calls. I was excited about it. And then I've done so many other things. I didn't want to get too excited, because I'm like, okay,
Don't
let's
get
just
your
see
hopes
what
up
happens.
too much.
Yeah,
Right.
let me just, no pressure, but yeah, let's just see what happens here. And as time went on and I was learning more, and I'm like, oh, okay, cool. I mean, it's like I could see a shift in my attitude, and my mood was lighter. I wasn't so, okay, more pain today. Here we go. I mean, it wasn't like that anymore. I was feeling lighter. And today, I would say my pain level is 50% less than it originally was. So it's up a little. And I actually just got back having lunch with some friends, and I hadn't seen them in a long time. And I was nervous about going and having this stiffness. So I knew what was causing it. It wasn't like I'm, like, well, what's going on? It's like I knew I was anxious about it. So the fact that at least it's still down is so awesome.
Well, and that's also the key. You hit the nail on the head. You may not have thought you were saying it this way, but what I heard in it is that you're making sense. Your symptoms are making sense. And the feeling that we can make sense of symptoms means we're not desperate to get the pain to go away every single moment and end the nightmare of the confusion. We don't have to have confusion anymore. We can. It all folds into a system. And I tried to explain every facet of the system. And I think that's what works. And so we know doubt is going to try to creep back in.
Mm-hmm.
It will. And you'll have to keep working at it.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
But I'm here as a resource. I have other resources. There's ways we can meet. Repetition is not a bad thing. You're going to keep gaining in strength on this.
Yep.
But you did such a great job. I'm proud of you, and
Thank you.
I'm happy for you, and you know where to find me. But don't stop looking out for doubt. If you start to feel hopeless or worried, that's all doubt.
Right.
It's all doubt trying to creep back in.
Right. No, yeah. And I love the columns again, because before I was really just honed in on emotions, and that's fine. I mean, that's good. And now I get it. It's like, oh, okay, this isn't emotional. This is doubt, or I'm feeling powerless, or whichever column, to pick from. So that's huge. I mean, that really opened up a lot of different ways to think about this than I was looking at it from before.
Yeah, and it needs to be organized, because otherwise you do get stuck in one area or another. So I can hear the organization worked for you, the camaraderie, the encouragement, the really the whole structure of finally feeling like it makes sense.
Yep.
That's what I wanted to give to you, and I'm so glad you got it.
Well, thank you from the bottom of my heart, seriously.
Well, thank you, Kimba, and we're going to keep in touch.
Yep.
Please do check in at any point in time if doubt creeps in, and you know where to find me in multiple places. You can comment on things. You can come to the Facebook group. All kinds of ways for us to connect. But I'm proud of you. You did.
Well, thank you.
You did great work, and most of all, I'm happy for you.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it's awesome. It's just awesome. Thank you so much.
It's my pleasure. I'm going to leave you with one last little bit of encouragement for you to not last one, because we'll interact as needed.
Yeah.
Don't forget, you can take this as far as you need to go. You can get that pain down to zero almost all the time.
Right.
You keep pushing on it.
Yep.
You be competitive with it. You win.
Oh, I will.
All right.
I definitely will. Thank you so much.
All right, Kimba, it's my pleasure. Let's keep in touch.
Okay. Thanks a lot, Dan.
Okay. I'm so happy to see Kimba in the state that she's in. I've seen her in lots of different states, and I know the kind of hopefulness people do have, but it's a cautious hopefulness when they're engaged in a new experience when it comes to mind-body work, or even just when they get to mind-body work for the first time. They've been burned so many times by medicine, by all kinds of different fields, and even in the mind-body field, I wouldn't say necessarily they were burned, but maybe let down in some way. And it was a pleasure to hear that Kimba was able to get a sense of the system and to feel confident in it. And it seemed like one of the things that jumped out at both her and myself is that the system is organizing, and it gave her a sense of a process. She talked about that. She didn't have the pressure to get it all done at once. It's a process. She's going to keep working on it, but she now has confidence, and she even saw it within the seminar. She had a pain and was able to make it go away right there by working in the emotions column. The fact that she's got all three columns available to her gives me all the confidence in the world that she is going to be totally fine. And I look forward to hearing more from her in the future. If you haven't already, click subscribe, ring the bell for notifications, hit like if you like what you're hearing, and put your comments below, and I'll get back to you personally.